What if the most documented terrorist attack in history was also the most carefully orchestrated cover-up in modern times? September 11, 2001. A date burned into the collective memory of humanity. But beneath the official narrative lies a web of connections so intricate, so disturbing, that questioning it has become synonymous with conspiracy. Yet the facts don't lie. In the hours before the first plane hit, someone made massive bets against American Airlines stock. Building 7, untouched by aircraft, collapsed in perfect symmetry. And the very people who would benefit most from a new Pearl Harbor had already written the playbook for America's response. Tonight, we follow the money, the power, and the silence that surrounds the most pivotal moment of the 21st century. This isn't about theories. This is about connections. Documented. Verifiable. Hidden in plain sight. Welcome to the shadow towers of 9/11. Follow the money. It's the first rule of investigative journalism, and it leads us to perhaps the most damning evidence of foreknowledge. Between September 6 and September 10, 2001, an unprecedented volume of put options were placed against American Airlines and United Airlines, the exact carriers used in the attacks. Put options are essentially bets that a stock will fall. Someone, somewhere, knew those planes were doomed. The Securities and Exchange Commission's own investigation revealed that the volume of put options on American Airlines was 285 times higher than normal. For United Airlines, it was 90 times the average. The mathematical probability of this being coincidence? Less than 1 in 10 million. In 30 years of market analysis, I've never seen anything like it. The precision was surgical. Someone knew exactly which airlines, which days, even which specific flight routes would be affected. But here's where it gets interesting. The 9/11 Commission, the official government investigation, acknowledged these trades existed but concluded the investigation was not pursued because the traders had no apparent connection to Al-Qaeda. Not pursued. The single largest insider trading event in aviation history, not pursued. The money trail leads to investment firms with direct ties to the CIA and major Wall Street players. Firms like Buzzy Krongard's A.B. Brown, later folded into Deutsche Bank. Krongard? He became the CIA's executive director just months before September 11. At 5:20 p.m. on September 11, something happened that defied physics, logic, and the official narrative. World Trade Center Building 7, a 47-story skyscraper that was never hit by a plane, collapsed in 6.5 seconds of perfect, symmetrical freefall. A structural engineer says, "In my 40 years of experience, I've never seen a steel frame building collapse due to fire alone." The probability of a symmetrical collapse from random fire damage is essentially zero. Building 7 housed some of the most sensitive government offices in New York, the CIA, Secret Service, SEC, and the Mayor's Emergency Command Center. Crucially, it also contained thousands of documents related to ongoing investigations into corporate fraud, including the Enron scandal and various Wall Street crimes. Perhaps most telling was the media's apparent foreknowledge. BBC reported Building 7's collapse 23 minutes before it actually happened. CNN and other networks made similar premature announcements. The National Institute of Standards and Technology took 7 years to produce their explanation. Normal office fires caused thermal expansion, leading to a single beam failure that triggered total collapse. Their computer model, classified. Their data, sealed. But Larry Silverstein, the building's owner, may have provided the most revealing statement. In a 2002 PBS documentary, he said, "I remember getting a call from the fire department commander, telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire, and I said, we've had such terrible loss of life, maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull and we watched the building collapse." Pull is demolition industry terminology for controlled demolition. In September 2000, exactly 1 year before September 11, a group of influential neoconservatives published a document that would prove prophetic, Rebuilding America's Defenses. The authors? The Project for the New American Century, founded by William Kristol and Robert Kagan. Their membership read like a who's who of the incoming Bush administration: Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, Jeb Bush, and others who would soon occupy the highest levels of government. The document explicitly stated that their vision for American military dominance would be difficult to achieve absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor. Within months of 9/11, every major policy recommendation in that document became reality: massive increases in defense spending, the invasion of Iraq, expanded military presence in the Middle East, and the erosion of civil liberties through the Patriot Act. It's remarkable how quickly policy papers written by defense contractors and think tanks became official U.S. strategy. Almost as if the response was prepared before the attack occurred. The parallels to Pearl Harbor are striking. In 1941, President Roosevelt needed an attack to justify entering World War II. Declassified documents later revealed that Roosevelt had advanced knowledge of Japanese intentions but allowed the attack to proceed to galvanize public support. History, it seems, has a way of repeating itself. Let's talk about the Saudi connection. 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi nationals, yet Saudi Arabia faced no consequences. Instead, within days of the attacks, the White House approved the evacuation of prominent Saudi nationals, including members of the bin Laden family, while American airspace remained closed to everyone else. FBI documents, released only after years of Freedom of Information Act battles, reveal that over 140 Saudis were flown out of the U.S. between September 13 and 24, 2001. Many were questioned only briefly, if at all. But the Saudi connection runs much deeper than emergency evacuations. For decades, Saudi money has flowed through American banks, defense contractors, and political networks. The Saudi investment company holds massive stakes in major U.S. corporations. Saudi Arabia is America's largest arms customer, generating billions for defense contractors. Prince Bandar bin Sultan, Saudi Arabia's ambassador to the U.S., was so close to the Bush family that he was known as Bandar Bush. His wife, Princess Haifa, made charitable donations that were later traced to 2 of the 9/11 hijackers through intermediary charities. The 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report dealing with Saudi connections remained classified for 15 years. When finally released in 2016, they revealed extensive support networks for the hijackers, including Saudi government officials who provided housing, money, and assistance. Yet no Saudi officials were ever prosecuted. No sanctions were imposed. The kingdom that produced most of the hijackers remained America's closest ally in the region. Siebel Edmonds was a FBI translator who stumbled upon information so sensitive that the government invoked the rare, state secrets privilege, to silence her. For over a decade, she was forbidden from speaking about what she discovered. Edmonds says, "What I witnessed was a complex network of relationships between high-ranking government officials, foreign governments, and criminal organizations." The 9/11 attacks were not a surprise to everyone in the government. Edmonds' allegations, now partially declassified, suggest that certain government officials had advanced knowledge of the attacks but failed to act due to ongoing intelligence operations involving the same networks. She wasn't alone. FBI agent Colleen Rowley tried to warn headquarters about Zacarias Moussaoui, the so-called 20th hijacker. Her requests for search warrants were repeatedly denied. CIA agent Michael Scheuer led the bin Laden unit but was prevented from sharing crucial intelligence with the FBI. Phoenix FBI agent Kenneth Williams wrote a memo in July 2001 warning that Islamic extremists might be training at U.S. flight schools. The memo was ignored. The pattern is consistent: warnings ignored, investigations blocked, evidence classified. Either the most sophisticated intelligence apparatus in history suffered a complete breakdown, or certain elements within the system needed the attacks to proceed. Former National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice claimed no one could have imagined terrorists using planes as weapons. Yet NORAD had conducted exercises simulating exactly such attacks. The military had wargamed scenarios involving hijacked aircraft used as missiles. They knew. The question is, what did they do with that knowledge? In ancient Rome, when investigating a crime, investigators asked, Cui Bono? Who benefits? The answer to 9/11 reveals a constellation of interests that gained immensely from that terrible day. Defense contractors saw their stock prices soar. Companies like Halliburton, Raytheon, and Lockheed Martin secured contracts worth hundreds of billions. The surveillance industrial complex emerged overnight, creating entire new markets for technology companies. Dick Cheney's former company, Halliburton, saw its government contracts increase by 3,400% in the years following 9/11. Oil companies gained access to Middle Eastern resources through military occupation. Private military contractors like Blackwater became billionaire enterprises. But perhaps most significantly, 9/11 enabled the creation of the modern surveillance state. The Patriot Act, passed just 45 days after the attacks, had been written years earlier but lacked public support. Suddenly, civil liberties became negotiable in the name of security. The National Security Agency expanded its domestic surveillance programs. The Department of Homeland Security created a massive new bureaucracy. Intelligence budgets doubled, then tripled. The military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned about in 1961 had found its ultimate justification: a war on terror with no defined enemy, no geographic boundaries, and no end date. 23 years later, the official story of 9/11 remains riddled with contradictions, classified evidence, and unanswered questions. We are told to accept that the most protected airspace in the world was penetrated 4 times by amateur pilots. That steel frame buildings collapsed from fire for the first time in history. That the most surveilled building in America, the Pentagon, has no clear footage of the attack. But perhaps the most disturbing truth is not what happened on September 11, 2001. Perhaps it's what happened next. How quickly freedoms were surrendered. How easily fear was weaponized. How a tragedy became the foundation for endless war and unprecedented government power. The families of the 3,000 victims deserve the truth. The American people deserve the truth. Yet every attempt to uncover that truth has been met with classification, deflection, and the dismissive label of conspiracy theory. But here's the final, chilling question that keeps investigators awake at night: if powerful people were willing to allow, or orchestrate, the deaths of 3,000 innocent Americans to advance their agenda, what else might they be willing to do? The shadow towers of 9/11 cast a long darkness over American democracy. Until we have the courage to step into that shadow and demand answers, we may never emerge from it. The truth is out there. The question is, are we brave enough to handle it?